How to go about decisively defining consciousness seems like a humanly impossible task. How can one describe that which one is subject to for the entirety of their life? But nonetheless, the infamous task of defining consciousness has been tackled by philosophers, psychologists, and scientists alike. All usually fail to come to a general consensus regarding what consciousness is, and the understanding of human consciousness in general is very menial. Now, a possible reason why our general understanding of consciousness is so base could be attributed in part to the highly abstract nature inherent with consciousness. All writings and statements regarding consciousness are merely speculative, and any attempt at a definition is loose in its foundations. Whether consciousness is solely entitled to humans, whether consciousness is simply general awareness, whether consciousness encompasses the entirety of human experience, etc., questions such as these and much more have been seemingly unsolvable in deciphering the near impossible puzzle of consciousness. All are left confounded in trying to define consciousness, so to say that little is understood about the topic would be an understatement. Now, loosely, one could define consciousness as knowing. Knowing in the sense of being aware of an object, such as my awareness of my surroundings, or being aware of the self, such as my awareness of my placing in my surroundings. But this rather loose description still does not pay its proper dues to the extraordinary complex nature of consciousness. Regardless, we will run off this simple definition in order that I don't spend hours philosophizing on what consciousness is. The coherence of consciousness, more so the broad aim the term undertakes encompassing, has also created a great number of difficulties for one defining consciousness. Some argue that the term encompasses far too broad of an area than is actually possible to accurately define. But this rather poignant argument has had little effect on the study of consciousness. It is still incredibly complex and still encompasses an astoundingly broad range of the human experience. Well, consequently, it is still a monster of a task to decipher. Such is the reason that at first glance, consciousness is simply defined as knowing or being aware of something. So being that consciousness is such a complex topic, how does one go about understanding it? Again, answers to this question vary dramatically. It is to be expected that for such a highly divisive topic, that study into the said topic would be equally if not more divisive. One method of understanding consciousness is to state to another what one directly observes at any given moment in time. To verbally communicate our experience with the world to another, we are able to give our observer an idea of what our consciousness is like, what it is like to experience as we experience on a day-to-day basis, in other words. This form of consciousness research has grown popular in the fields of psychology, neuropsychology, and neuroscience, especially given the advantage we have today in research tools aiding our understanding of consciousness. But again, given the highly ambiguous nature of the term, one method of studying consciousness may be drastically different from another method of studying the phenomena. In medicine, for example, consciousness is studied and observed by comprehending whether a patient is awake, responsive to one's environment or not. This mode of research is much more clear-cut than the rather ambiguous free-flowing mode of research involving communication of one's daily experiences. How one defines consciousness determines whether one will adhere to a particular mode of research. In my case, I think of consciousness as the broad encompassment of sensation and perception, and their involvement in the phenomena of human experience. Given my idea of consciousness, the first mode of research mentioned would be much more optimal to my understanding of the phenomena. As to the questions of validity regarding the mode of research, one would then have to question the validity of the concept of consciousness itself. For what is consciousness without one's observations of it? More specifically, one's observations of one's environment. The concept of consciousness, I personally believe, is far too open-ended for its method of research to be questioned before the actual concept is questioned. In this case, question what is being studied before you question the study. And for consciousness, this task seems to be one which will be questioned for the entirety of human history.